Top Secret. That's what it was, right? Top Secret. Oh my God. I think that's the first time I saw him. Was that the first movie he did? Because you all would know. Well, when I saw that, I was like, well, this is the most talented actor I've ever seen in my life. Because he's hilarious and dead-on serious, and singing and dancing and moving and everything is dead-on perfect. Perfect.
Look, I'm not the first guy who fell in love with a girl he met in a restaurant who then turned out to be the daughter of a kidnapped scientist, only to lose her to a childhood lover whom she'd last seen on a deserted island, and who turned out 15 years later to be the leader of the French underground.
I know it. It all sounds like some bad movie. Charming. He's just very charming in it, and very goofy.
Jerry Zucker and David, his brother, and Jim Abrams, and several other these guys that are in this first couple of movies, starting with Kentucky Fried Movie and Airplane, and they had a theater on Pico. I was addicted. We would go a couple of times a month, is my memory, for a while. But they were just hysterical, and most of those jokes got put into Airplane and all. So I just knew their thing, their style, backwards and forwards. So when I met them, I kind of did a whole homage to their stuff, which they liked. They were so brutal, though. Like, I learned to play the guitar. My fingers bled to make these guys happy and do all this. They waited till like the last week, after months of me playing guitar, and they said one day kind of casually, you know, it's funnier when you can't play. I said, what? They said, you know how like Elvis was just like, it's funnier. It's nice you knew them, but you learned the songs, that's nice, but we don't really want you to play. And they just did it just to see that look on my face, pain and disappointment.
And then Real Genius.
I can't go through an airport without somebody mentioning Real Genius. It made a lot of nerds happy.
He is just hilarious, and in my favorite way hilarious. You know, it's not... Goofy's fine, but he's not goofy. He's, you know, just dead-on serious, hilarious, and, oh, God, no, I've been a huge fan since then.
We lived all the way at the north end of the valley, at the end of the city limits, literally the end of the city in the valley. And that's where my father started. We started at the beach, and then he moved out there. He found a lovely old faux Tudor house across the way. I guess you can't say street because there was a valley in between us and Roy Rogers. And then he eventually bought his place.
And Val lived in what was Roy Rogers' old ranch. That's where Val grew up. So there was a Dale Avenue and a Trigger Street.
They lived across the street. She answered the door, her hair was in curlers, and I joked. I said, can Roy come out and play? She had a big southern accent that I hadn't seen on TV or heard. She said, I think he's busy right now, darling. I said, okay, and ran away.
The reason that my company is called Trigger Street Productions is because Val lived on Trigger Street. When we were both maybe, I don't know, 15 or maybe a little younger, we dreamed about building a theater on Trigger Street.
Yeah, we had an idea of doing outdoor theater sort of in the sense of play that they had going at the Renaissance Fair in the 70s.
And it was going to, and I still have the napkins that we drew, the amphitheater. It was going to be the Trigger Street Theater, and we were going to do new plays, and we were going to do Shakespeare. And when it came time for me to name my company, I just remembered that time as being a time where anything seemed possible on Trigger Street.
I just started asking around what the best school was. I don't know who I asked in Chatsworth, but someone knew. I think I was 16 when I auditioned, so I couldn't find any monologue to do, so I wrote one because I still sounded like a surfer. And well, I'll tell you the scam I built into it, because I just kept thinking, how do you do an audition? What is it? Because no matter what you do, you can't stop yourself from thinking, please like me and give me the part, or in this case, let me in. I don't know how I came up with this, but I wish I was still this clever. I turned it into the audition of the people that were watching. And I realized if I pretended to break character, that if I got someone to believe me, that then they would have to remember it. So at one point I looked up and I said, "I'm sorry, can I start over?" Hoping someone would say, "Yes, please." And it was Marion Seldes, who was very theatrical. She said, "Oh yes, darling, do it, oh yes, please." And she started like chewing on her lip and everything. And I said, "No," and that's the point, because we could never start over. And then I went back to quoting what this woman was saying. And so that was the first thing they asked me when we were done with the audition, is if that was part of the monologue. And so I was happy that my little scheme worked.
Val had gone to Juilliard right after high school. It took me 2 years to get the message, but he kept writing me letters saying, "You've got to come to school if you're serious. If you want to study, if you want to be a good theater actor, this is what you have to do." And it was really Val that insisted and helped me make the decision to go to Juilliard.
I did that? It's my fault. The main thing with Juilliard was learning how to learn, that there are rules and laws and principles to the creative process and to life.
Just to preface it with the context, I remember Val in 1984, I believe it was, auditioning for Platoon as Sergeant Elias, and he came in and he did one of the strangest auditions I've ever seen in my life. And he came in basically without a word, and he lay down on the table, and he was already a fairly known actor, and he did this weird kind of Indian ghost shaman act of Elias, and it was very bizarre to say the least. It just didn't fit the script, but it was so outspoken that I was stunned, and that was my first impression of him. And then I called him for the Doors, and he looked so much like Morrison, and his attitude was ironic, like Morrison's.
They really were, in some ways, the first punk band. They had a sense through Morrison of what real theater is.
It's a scary role. It's a huge role. Every shot is on you. You carry every scene in some way. You have to be Jim Morrison night and day. So at one point, Val was wearing leather pants, and he was sleeping Jim Morrison, being Jim Morrison. And truly a flaky side came out of him, a beautiful flaky side, which I still see today, which is great.
Oliver's a very thorough director. He's a dynamic character, and he's demanding, and I don't know if his style is the right way, but it certainly has produced some of the best performances of every actor that's worked for him. Certainly is true in my career.
Up next, Kilmer reteams with Stone for an epic with star power.
So we just started in right away making jokes and goofing like a sort of perfectly dysfunctional family that Oliver Stone was so proud to have assembled. He called us the Addams Family of Asian literature.